Eric and Allison, Endless Adventure. Thanks for the shirt.
What?
So,
Man, I don't know what to say.
you don't need to say anything.
Oh my goodness, that is gorgeous.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Wow, that is beautiful. Beautiful, oh man.
If you'd like to follow the process of turning a block of wood like this into a guitar like this, then you've come to the right place. And if you would like to see me give this guitar away, click subscribe, hit the bell. I believe your guitar is done being routed.
My rough idea.
Oh, look at this. Yeah. I'm just going to shorten this up now. Thanks once again for a great year during 2021 and for continuing to watch and helping to boost up my YouTube channel. If you really want to help me out, maybe you could even give it a little shove and encourage others to check it out. Obviously people that like guitar building, because if you don't like guitars, you would not like this, I don't think. Unless you just think I'm just such a great guy, which I doubt that that's the case also. But anyway, let's get to work. I'm going to start by using this Dremel with this round bit. It's not plugged in right now, otherwise I'm going to be touching this. But he can give you about the size of the head on that bit there. And I'm going to be using that bit to, now I'm going to take this down and wrap this around so it looks like this is just kind of a nice wave coming up into there. So I got to remove some of that. And I do it by just looking at it. So first off, they might not all be exactly identical as I do them. I can show it to you on this one a little closer up, and I still have a little carving or sanding to do to get this right like it needs to be. This comes around, comes over to this side here, but you can't even, that's not sanded or anything yet. I've just got the valley started, and so I will be doing that on the other ones just to get it to look a little bit more like this. But then I'll use sandpaper to shape it really the way I want it to be shaped. And this, I still need to run sandpaper along here, get that smoothed out a little bit better. I don't want it to be too rounded off or anything, but it does need to be a little smoother. And then we're going to be working on the scroll work here, and there's a lot to do here. This is a lot more difficult and tricky, but again, do it all pretty much by hand. Okay, that just roughs it in, and getting used to using a Dremel just takes a little while. This is roughing it in, but I'll use sandpaper now to define it and soften it. As it'll come in this corner here will definitely be more soft as well. Looking like it usually does at about this point, but as you'll see as I sand it and shape it more with sandpaper, it'll start to look nicer. But what I'm doing by having kind of a definitive crease in here is it gives it the appearance or the look that this is wrapping into the rest of this wood, as you'll see it when I finish this off and kind of soften this up. In fact, I could take a little bit more off right in there, it looks like, yeah, I think. Getting the fill for a Dremel takes a little bit of work, so don't do this on the guitar the first time. Do this on a scrap piece of wood. I am barely touching. If I push at all, it'll just suck this right into the wood. In fact, I'll find a scrap piece here quick. As you can see, it just takes a moment for it to dig in and gouge if I put any pressure on there. So when I'm doing it, I am just barely touching. Like this is how I want to do it when I'm actually shaping with the Dremel. Always remember, you can always take more off. You can never add it back on, really. Now to get my side cuts, I'll actually pick this up sideways and hold it a little different here. At the moment, it doesn't look all that pretty. What I'm trying to do here, and I'm not sure exactly how Dave Roussan does this back here. I know he's got a little bit of a fold in there, or what looks like a little bit of a valley in there as well. This crease in the back, that's one of your trademarks.
Yeah, the original has that. I've gone to a lot of trouble to replicate everything from the originals.
What I'm trying to do in my version of these is this comes around, and I want to make it look like this is wrapping. I'm trying to make it look like this part wraps into this piece of wood, like you almost imagine this coming around and swirling into it, and so that this will come around, and it's going to look like it's making its way into it, like it's swirling all the way in, like you could follow that line right in there is what I'm trying to do. And I just get it roughed out with the Dremel, and then I'll use sandpaper, and I'll start to fold all this in and try and make it look, it's flowing nicely and smoothly. With these X Horizons, I'll pretty much round this completely off so that it's nice and smooth. Whereas the original solid bodies, this is going to come around and it's still going to be rounded a little bit, but it's going to basically be a ledge here, and then this would come, and if you were driving down the road here on this part, you would actually run into like a little wall right in here, so to speak. But with what I'm doing with these X Horizons is I'm rounding it off a little bit different. So that's my own version of it. I have done some in the very same way that Dave does it, with that being rounded a little bit differently. With these X Horizons, I am not trying to replicate what Dave Roussan has done with Princess Cloud. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I do this swirl. We're going to do a quick little flashback to 10 minutes ago when I started working on this. I'll be cutting this swirl in. I've got my way of doing a quick little template with it, which is not very technical at all. The big thing is that we will be coming at an angle. This is the high point. What you see as the dark line is the high point, and I'm going to be cutting away the stuff in between. And this is going to come down at an angle, and it's sharp, pretty much straight up and down on this part here. This is kind of straight up and down, but this is angled down to that. And as far as the depth goes and all of that, guys, I really can't tell you without, I guess I can try measuring it and see about how deep I go. But a lot of it's muscle memory, and this is the artistry part of it, is where the handcrafting comes in, is you just kind of feel it and know what it's supposed to look like and carve away. And I bet you're all looking at my shirt thinking, what a cool shirt. The Endless Adventure was the very first YouTube videos that I ever watched when we were getting prepared to go over to England, and I was trying to figure out how to drive on the left-hand side of the road, and started watching them, and I enjoyed it. And I finally realized what my kids have been talking about, because my son and my daughter, they watch YouTube, and I'm thinking, why would you watch YouTube? How lame is that? And then I started watching The Endless Adventure. I was hooked. I don't even watch regular TV anymore, really. I watch Endless Adventure and Kara and Nate and Flora and Note. These are different travel couples because I enjoy travel stuff. So I'm a sucker. Had to buy a little merchandise. So Eric and Allison, Endless Adventure, thanks for the shirt. Okay, my friends, I am going to show you my magical, fantastic way that I do these scrolls. I have made my little template that I use for drawing this on here. And once I get it in place, and the way I get it in place is I've got my line here that I can follow along the spine of this, and it comes around and I can feel the edge. And then I use my high-tech carbon paper, Now it's not going to look all that pretty when I take this template off. My next high tech. I know some of you probably think, just make a template already. Well, you know, I'm going to end up hand carving this, and I don't use a router. I use both the Dremel and carving tools. I have a sequence of these sockets, and so I just to help me get it a little more defined. That's not what I'm cutting out. I'm cutting out what is in between. And so this is where the artistry aspect of it, I suppose, comes in, is I've got to come up, I'll be slicing up this way, rounding this off into here, and coming around this direction. And it just takes a while to do it. But I'm gonna do, like I said, I can do a majority of this. I'm gonna do with the Dremel here. So I'll get the Dremel going. I use that big bit to kind of get this middle part, and then I go to a smaller and smaller bit, and I come around this edge here. That's where these are handcrafted. Each one is probably slightly different. They're pretty close to the same, but I know the feel of my hands in doing it, and that's what I go by. I know Dave Rasan was saying that when he does a lot of this stuff, it's just a lot of muscle memory, like his body kind of knows just how it needs to be, and so he sees it with his eyes, he feels it with his hand. And
I have a built-in tendency to do something a certain way.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we're talking about tiny little details, and he sent me photos of the way the cleft is and this area, and I thought, well, yeah, I guess I got it right, you know. And I start to actually run my hands over it a lot. Then I can feel things that I can't see at this point, but I'll be able to see when it's shiny and finished.
This area in here, I'm making a definite groove in there right now to give it a distinct, just a distinct cutting point. This will be rounded. As I start to sand this, it'll come in real nicely. Giving this a definite cutting point, kind of, it'll come to a place there where it's pointed. Now I've used the Dremel, now clean up with just a little bit with one of these. I'll just come in here and kind of scrape it in to get it to a nice point there, and then with using sandpaper at a sharp angle. This is one of those elements of the carve that just takes a long, long time to sand and get that groove in there the way it needs to be. And just so you know, the way that I do this is I get this curve carved in, and then I can kind of shape a little bit of the wood around that curve yet to make that right, so the outside part. So you'll notice some of my other ones, like, and this looks really rough yet, but I leave a little bit of extra wood around here so that I can then get this curve the way I want it, and then I can kind of shape this around that curve. That's the way I do it. I always give myself a little bit of extra, which means I will have to do a little more work on the other end, taking some off, but that allows me to follow my curve pretty well that way to make sure. And like I said, each and every one is just slightly different because, yeah, the wood grain and everything, how it carves, and If you get a little chunk out that you didn't want, well, now you need to fix that. So that can be a little tricky. The dryer's going in the background, so there's a little extra noise back there. I wasn't planning on recording, but I thought, well, I'd bring the camera down in case. I'm working on the 2 guitars for Mr. X. And one thing that I'm slightly concerned about with these, this is wood he sent me from California. And it's maple, it's curly maple, and this is maple from Minnesota. And you can see a little bit of a color difference there as well, but what I've really noticed in the carving is how much softer this is than what the Minnesota maple is. So the way this seems to act as I'm carving it feels more like an alder or spruce type of, just the wood is a softer wood. And so, I mean, I'm just guessing that the harsher winters of Minnesota probably make for a tighter grained wood, a harder wood than what Minnesota or what California would be, because the wood can grow quicker and just kind of keep growing. So what I don't know is, I guess we're going to find out in the long run whether or not these come out with the same bright, crisp sound, or if it will be a little bit more muted, if the mid-range or high range will be more pronounced. We'll find out. So hoping that it's going to be what he likes, and also a little more stringy. I don't know what the right word would be for that, but as I'm carving, there's like more striation in the wood. So where I'd get more dust coming off of the Minnesota wood, I'm getting more like little stringy pieces coming off of the California maple. So